Welcome back, everyone. My name is Greg Sullivan, and this is part 4 of our series in which we are recreating the interface from Apple Fitness Plus. In this part, we're going to really start to get into some fun techniques and details. We're going to use CSS Clamp to create responsive typography so that the fonts look great on every size screen. We're going to use Flexbox to get total control of our placements easily. We're going to use Backdrop Filter to create that cool glass effect that Apple has going on here. And we are going to use CSS variables to start injecting some color in a really controlled programmatic way. It's a lot to cover, so let's wade in. Now pay attention because this is going to come together pretty quickly. Put this down here for reference. And let's make this pretty. Let's scrub to a part of the video that has some backing. And we'll bring our graphic back up. So our info box needs a background. Let's give it a background of red, just for visibility. Perfect. We want box sizing to be border box. That makes this much easier to handle. Let's add padding of one rim. Looking good. Border radius. Let's give that 1 rim. All right. How's that coming along? That's looking good. Now let's go display. And I want a lot of control, so I'm going to put this in Flex. I'm going to use Flexbox. I'm going to do Flex Direction, Column. All right, that's getting a little airy, and that is because the H1s are pretty airy in the normalized CSS. So we're just going to go Info Box, H1, and we're going to take those margins out. There we go. Now it's too tight, though, so we want that to breathe. We go back to Info Box. Let's add a gap of, I don't know, I'm spitballing here, 0.5 rem. Now we're starting to get somewhere. That font size is 68 pixels. As you can see, 68 pixels is obnoxious, but it's not actually 68 pixels we're saying right there. It's actually twice that because our normalized CSS has set H1s to 2 EM. We want it to be 1 EM. EMs being relative to their parent container size. So I promise Normalize is doing a lot of good stuff for us, but every once in a while you got to whip it back into shape. Now 68 pixels, looking good, but a little big. So we want to set that to be responsive so it looks good on every screen. So we're going to use the CSS Clamp function. If you're not familiar, Clamp gives you a minimum, desired, and maximum in that order font size. And I've done some experimenting. You'll just have to take my word for these things. 8 pixels is about as small as we ever want this type to get. It's barely readable, so no smaller than that. The desired minimum is 8V min. I'll talk about that in a second. And the max is that 68 pixels. We never want it to be bigger than 68. So the font size will try to be 8V minimum, but it won't get bigger than 68 or smaller than 8. And vmin just takes the lesser of the VH or the VW. And if you're not familiar with those, that's view width and view height, the viewable area of your workspace. So this is the minimum of the two, 8V min. So if we resize, if we save this, it's looking better. We resize our viewport. You can actually see the typography is changing sizes. That's great. The video is also changing sizes. We have some more styling to do there, but don't worry about that. We'll fix it. So great. This is looking fantastic. Let's do something about that red background. Obviously, we don't want it to be red. Let's take a look at what we do want it to look like. Now, it has this vaguely brownish wash, but if you actually watch a motion, one of these in motion, you'll see that it's actually a glass effect. So let's recreate that real quick. It's a middle gray. I'll choose that, just eyeballing it. We'll save it. Let's bring the opacity down to 0.5. Good places to start. And now we're going to use a backdrop filter. I'm going to do a blur. And we're going to do a blur of 1 pixel. Okay, so that's getting closer, but we still want to play with it. So let's now darken this up quite a bit. Let's go down to 30. That's looking a lot better. Let's take that blur radius up to 10. There we go. Doesn't that look familiar? And when we're in here, we might as well mess with that border radius, which is going to be 1M. That is actually the correct border radius relative scale to our set font size. So as the font size shifts, the border radius will tighten up and it'll continue to look good. Very subtle, but keeps that intention. That's looking really great. Let's bring in a little bit of color. And for this, we're going to use CSS variables. So let's head back up here to the Workout app. And I'm just going to paste these in and then we can talk about them. These are the ones I did from sampling the colors in Photoshop from our presentation here. So I have text primary. It's just white, but we want to set up a variable so that we can change it whenever design needs. Maybe they're going to do a St. Patrick's Day version of this for a week and they want to change all the colors to green. You don't want to have to go in and change 100 things. Timer highlight here is this nice yellow. We'll get around to using this transparent version of it. It's the same yellow with 25% opacity. There's your heart rate, which is the color of the heart in the down here. And then I'm just realizing as I'm speaking that I don't need this color as a variable because that is defined in the SVG. We'll deal with that later. And then you have your calories. So let's save that and start putting these to use. So the super in the calories, let's go .calories super, and let's change the color. And this is how you use a var. You type var and you open the parentheses, dash dash, and we want to use that metric calories. Boom, looking good. And now let's, working apparently bottom up, let's set that interval timer. That H1. We'll set the var to color var time highlight. There you go. Already coming together. Let's just change this to BBTK since it's taking up too much space. The burn bar there is throwing off our layout a bit. This is looking pretty good. Let's clean up these gaps. And do all my OCD. And save it. All right, this is looking good. I just want to do a little bit more cleanup because when you scale this down, the video and the overlay lose their relationship to each other. And that is why we created the workout container. So let's go workout container. Now, we want this to have a height of 100%. We want this to have an aspect ratio of 16:9, because that's the aspect ratio of the video. We want this to be position relative, overflow hidden. We want a margin of 0 and auto. It's an old school trick for centering. We could have used Flexbox or any other number of things. And then we want a max height. And the max height is going to be 100 dVH. Now, if you're not familiar with dVH, it's relatively newer. It means dynamic view height. If you were to deploy this onto a phone with that variable sizing that comes with the footer and header hiding and showing, dVH is going to adjust that for you. And now you can see our video overlay sits in our video at all times. All right, except for the burn bar, it's all there on the screen. Looking good, sticking together, scaling nicely. It's not doing anything. We'll get to that later. But it's there. It looks great. Now, I meant to put a text transform uppercase on the superscript here for the calories so that it matches Apple's design. I'll leave that for you to do. And also, if you want a little bit of extra credit, there is actually a slightly different font weight from up here to down here. I didn't bother to do that. I think you can figure it out. But other than that, it's really looking great, isn't it? In the next part, it's a big one. It's about a 30-minute tutorial. We cover a lot. We're going to recreate that burn bar. We're going to use SVG masks. We're going to use some CSS blend modes. We're going to use some animations. We're going to do an animated GIF of a little dancing man in there, because why not? It's a lot, and it's going to be a big one, and you're going to learn a lot of cool techniques. It was a lot of fun figuring out how to do that. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. And as always, if you've got a better way of doing something or you've got an interesting idea to share, please do so. I'm always looking to learn from you. See you next time.